right, with the winner, Donovan Bailey, congratulations. Describe the race from your point of view.
Well, I mean, I ran not as the first 20 meters wasn't as I planned it because the corner was a little tight. But I knew I'd catch him going into the stretch, and Michael Johnson's not a sprinter. He runs the 200 meters. So I know if I caught him coming into the stretch, I mean, it was over. And it was over. I mean, he cried foul. I guess he caught an injury. Oh, boy, I'll meet him again, though.
Many people will say that because he did pull up, this race does not answer the question. How will you answer that?
Well, I tell him to watch the tape, and I'm sure Michael will be running in his next competition. He didn't pull up. He's just a coward.
You came into this race under much controversy. You issued a letter today to the public stating that you were racing under duress. Why was it important for you to let people know that?
Well, first of all, the track configuration that was in the contract was drastically changed. That's on the track right now. I guess the suit, media, whoever was here. So it's the corner was much tighter than what I trained. But I'm home. I'm in Canada, and you know, I have a lot of friends and family here, as well as a lot of fans worldwide, even in America. And I just wanted to come and compete. I mean, walking away from this, the event was too big to walk away, so I just concentrated on running my race and just came down and do it.
The obvious question now is rematch. That word was even coming up before this race began. Under what circumstances would you agree to a rematch?
With Michael Johnson?
Yes.
There's no rematch. He's not a sprinter. I think that we'll leave the race to sprinters right now, and what we'll do is have there's Frankie, Otto, Linford. I mean, now we can get real sprinters in the event, so we can make it interesting.
All right, congratulations, Donovan. Let's send him back upstairs.
Our country remembers very well your rivalry with Donovan Bailey. I'm just wondering, do you have any kind of relationship with him? Have you talked to him recently? What is the status of your relationship with him?
No, absolutely not. I mean, that was Donovan said what he said after that race, and he said what he said. He said what he needed to say, and I did what I needed to do. Went ahead and kept winning gold medals and left Donovan where he still belongs.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate we remember.
What's up, everybody? Mr. 100K a day here. And today, of course, in part 2 of this series about Michael Johnson, Grand Slam track, and while the league will be a failure, while Michael Johnson is going to be a failure, and I hope that his whole entire system fails, you know, we're talking about how he was perceived and how he actually competed. Now, we just saw Donovan Bailey, who was at the time a world record holder, who had just competed against Michael Johnson. His own contemporary called him a coward. And this is when he was competing. A coward. So my point in establishing these videos and putting this information out is reminding people that we cannot trust a man, or anybody for that matter, to lead us into the land of milk and honey when it comes to track and field, when he himself is a coward, when he himself is not a leader, when he had the opportunity to change the sport and do right in the sport, nobody respected him. For that, they only respected Michael Johnson when he was time to blow everybody out the water, when he was much better than everybody. But the minute he had another person who was capable of running just as fast as him, at that time, he failed. He either choked, he pulled up sick, he pulled up injured, or he pulled out all the time. So let's do a quick recap. I just went over it. 1991, boom, he wins the world championship. 20-01. But it was into a headwind, extremely slow time, but it was into a huge headwind, negative like 3.7 headwind. Got that. 1992, he's the reigning world champion, goes into the Olympics. Guess what? He doesn't make it out the semifinals. Why? He had real competition. Mike Marshall just ran 1973. At the time, the world record was 1972. So let's just be real about it. He finds a way, of course, his body fails him. He had food poisoning or whatever the excuse was. Now, let's move forward. After 1992, guess what he does? Oh, let me make sure we're clear about this also. Also in 1992, he decides not to run the 400 at that particular race, at that particular Olympics or trial. Let me tell you why. Quincy Watts. I just said that already. Quincy Watts went to the Olympics and won with a 43.50, a time that Michael Johnson at the time, when he was just a skinny little kid, had no ability to run. He could not come nowhere close to 43.50. Everybody knows that it was clear. And look how skinny he was back then. That man was way thinner. So something that he got on, something he did automatically took his body from looking like a teenage kid into a grown man. That's the bottom line. So that was his career up until 1992. The disappointment in 1992 when he didn't even make the final at the Olympics. He always talking that all gold, no silver, no bronze crap, but he never mentioned the fact that 1988 he didn't even run at the trials when he was scheduled to run. 1992 he didn't make it to the finals at the Olympics when he was in the semifinals. He forget that part. He make it seem like he's all success and no disappointment, which is a load of crap. And we got to keep this in mind when we talking about this dude. So 1993 runs around. Stuttgart, Germany, I believe. Stuttgart is where the world championships are. And he doesn't run the 200. Claims he was injured, didn't have the training in, so he runs the longer event, the 400. Now, let's remember, just a year before, Quincy Watts won the Olympics in 43.50. Quincy Watts wasn't in that type of shape. He ended up running 45.05 in the world final that year. Butch Reynolds was the world record holder, Harry Reynolds. He ended up running 44.13. He wasn't in 43.29 shape. So Michael Johnson, of course, now goes into the world championships in 1993 and wins by over approximately a half a second, 43.65 to 44.13, second place. Of course, he didn't run faster than the time that won the Olympics the previous year. So what we're seeing now is that when he competes, for the most part, when he competed, he seemed to have had really virtually no competition. He wins by always, in sprint races, 0.3 of a second, half second, or even a full second or more each and every time. And he never races anybody in their peak. The only time he went against somebody in their peak was Donovan Bailey and Maurice Green. And guess what? What happened when he went against those people? He came out on the losing end, or he pulled up injured every single time. So 1993, 43.65, he wins the world championship. No competition, wins by almost a half a second. So 1995 rolls around. Let's see what he does now. Okay, so he decides to double in Gothenburg, Sweden. He wants to do the double, the 200 and 400 double, to prepare for the Olympics the following year. What does he do at the World Championships in Gothenburg? He doubles. Wins the 400, 43.39. Second place, once again, Butch Reynolds, 42.22. This man wins by 0.8 of a second. Almost 0.9 of a second. Almost a full second. So I think it was pretty clear that he had virtually no competition. This man won by 0.8 of a second in a sprint race of almost a full second. Can y'all imagine that? There's no competition against this guy who can really push him. Remember that 43.5 that won the Olympics 2 years prior to this race, or 3 years, this was 1995, so it was 3 years prior. That's no longer around. So although, and even in 1988, the 43.8 that had won in 1988 at the Olympics, those guys are no longer around. So after these guys have either fallen off, gotten injured, that's when he comes along and decides to run these events. And this is when he, of course, is dominant and winning by 0.3 of a second or more, or even up to a second in some of these 400-meter races. And let's not forget, he doubled at the 1995 World Championships. Remember, he did the 2-4 double. Won the 400, boom, by a crazy margin. Won the 200, 1979, which, of course, it was his championship record. That was, actually, he didn't have the championship record because in 1993, someone else had broke his championship record and ran 1985, which was Frankie Fredericks. He comes back, beat Frankie Fredericks. Frankie Fredericks was a known choke artist, was always a mostly silver medalist, especially in major competitions. So he runs 1979s and wins the world championship to get the double. Now, of course, second place is 20.12. 20.12, guys. This man wins by, once again, 33 hundredths of a second. 33 hundredths of a second. As long as he knows and the competition he's going against is is inferior to him, or injured, or not at their peak, he does very, very, very well. He won by 0.3 of a second, 33 hundredths of a second in this 200-meter race. This man doesn't ever have to even dip when he's running. So I don't know if that signifies that you're just amazing, that much better than everybody. But when you're that much better than everybody, and there are other people out there who are capable of running fast, but you always win when nobody else is running fast, what does that tell you? That tells me that you're probably a coward. And it probably tells me that when you go against really good guys, when you go against people who are your equal, and go against people who are capable of running with you and competing against you, you are probably going to fold. Now, this is 1995. You got the double. No, he goes into the Olympic year, and I guess it's showtime. That's where all the stops come out. He's gaining all this weight. He gains all this muscle now. He seems to be virtually unstoppable because there's nobody out there who, for some reason, who he meets at their peak in running times that are within the purview of what he can run. Very clear. So, there's a pattern that's definitely established here. And like I said, Donovan Bailey, who was also a world championship in 1990, champion in 1995 in the 100-meter dash, the clash was going to come up. The clash is definitely going to come up. And I've already showed you guys what Donovan Bailey said about Michael Johnson a couple years later. We're going to get to that point in a second, but let's get into the 1996 Olympics and how he went into the 1996 Olympics and how he performed. We're going to do that on part 3 to this. But I just wanted to make sure you guys understand that Michael Johnson consistently won by large margins, and he kicked butt all the time. But the competition simply wasn't there. And how he did when people went heads up against him. He either ran from the competition, found a reason not to win, like running 1988. 1991, he goes and wins against nobody. 1992, he doesn't make it to the Olympic final. 1993, he avoids the 400-meter dash. He avoids the 200-meter dash because remember he would have had to go against those guys who just won the Olympics in who've been running those crazy times the year prior. He runs the 400, win by a large margin. 1995 comes along and he does a double, but he wins each race by at least 0.3 of a second and sometimes 0.8 of a second, like in the 400. Now we're going to 1996. These are telltale signs of a coward, in my opinion, and a guy who goes against competition, who does well when people are not running competitively against them. They're just also rams. That's what it tells me about him. This is why we can't respect this guy or trust this guy with a track and field league called Grand Slam Track League. I don't want to watch it. I hope it fails. And for this reason, I have no faith in him. Excuse me. In no aspect of American life or human life do we put in place a leader who we believe to be a coward, a leader who himself was putting under pressure and showed that he was scared, or who himself was put under pressure and folded. And for this reason, we should have absolutely no faith in Michael Johnson, his track lead, or anything he had coming, anything that he wants to do. I want him out of the sport. He needs to go sit home and retire with his wife, who's non-black. Let me add that. So this is part 2, y'all. Part 3 coming up, and we're going to talk about how he did at the Olympics and the fallout from the Olympics and how he did after the Olympics, because that's going to be the major part, and it's going to show exactly what type of dude he was. Anyway, Mr. 100K a day, another episode of the Biggest Hater Track and Field, sports betting, gambling, and I'm going to catch y'all next time. Peace.
Fire, walk through hell, did a lot of things that make 1 million records sell. So bust it down, baby, for a poet. I make 100K a day and I can throw it. I'm big meat on the couch, sipping my weight on the couch. Throw it back,